anniversary to residents. United States kill 2. Nigeria's National Security Advisor, Nuru Rubadu, has held talks with the senior United States government officials on counter-terrorism, defense cooperation, and regional security. Rubadu, on a 3-day working visit to the United States, met with the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and the Secretary of the State, Marco Rubio, who also serves as an acting National Security Advisor. He also met with the Undersecretary for the Political Affairs, Alison Hooker, and Assistant Secretary of War, Daniel Zimmerman, during the visit. A statement by Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, on Saturday, said Rubadu conveyed the President's commitment to the bilateral relationship during the engagements. Both countries concluded the meetings with a commitment to deepen bilateral engagement through sustained diplomatic dialogue and enhanced defense cooperation under the Joint Working Group framework. Meanwhile, troops of the Operation Adinkai have neutralized at least 50 suspected Islamic State West African province ISWAP terrorists during a coordinated attack on the headquarters of 27th Brigade in Bunungari, Yobe State. The Nigerian Army disclosed this in a statement issued on Saturday by the Media Information Officer of the Joint Task Force Northeast, Operation Adinkai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba. According to the statement, the terrorists launched the attack at about 2 a.m. on Thursday from multiple directions, targeting the brigade headquarters and the Bunungari checkpoint. It added that no part of the military formation was breached during the attack. The military disclosed that some mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles and gun trucks sustained minor damage during the operation, while injured personnel were receiving treatment. It also confirmed that 2 soldiers were killed during the encounter. The Army said troops and volunteer forces had commenced follow-up operations to track fleeing terrorists and prevent regrouping attempts in the area. In a related development, operatives of the Ondo State Security Network Agency, Amotekun, have arrested 4 suspected terrorists allegedly connected to a series of violent crimes across the state over the past 8 months. The state commander of the corps, Adetunji Adeleye, disclosed the arrest while briefing journalists in Akure, noting that the operation was intelligence-led and carried out in collaboration with other security agencies. According to him, the suspects were part of a gang allegedly involved in armed robbery, kidnapping, and destruction of property in different parts of the state. Adeleye said the group's leader, who was reportedly receiving instructions from outside the state, was captured during what he described as a coordinated and intensive operation. He added that the gang's logistic and supply chain had also been dismantled, with additional members of the syndicate picked up during the crackdown. Because of the sensitivity of the case, he said the suspects had been handed over to the Department of State Services, DSS, for further interrogation and possible prosecution. The Man Who Wore Nigeria, or Your State chapter, gathered at the State Command Secretariat, Amide Children's School, Iwo Road, Ibadan, for the official inauguration of the newly elected State Command Executive members. BCOS reporter Fidora Afolagwe, who was at the event, has at the inauguration files in the details.
After 4 years of diligent service and dedication, the members of Man Who Wore Nigeria assembled at the State Command Secretariat for the inauguration ceremony that marks the transition of leadership within the Oyo State chapter of the organization. In his welcome address, the Oyo State Commander of Man Who Wore Nigeria, Yekin Lukman, who was reappointed for a 2nd term, extended gratitude to members for their support over the preceding 4 years and highlighted the administration's notable achievements, including the renovation of the State Commander's office and the renaming of the Quarter Guard. He stated that the new term would concentrate on consolidation, growth, and building an enduring legacy while nurturing men of discipline and patriotism dedicated to serving Nigeria.
We plan to have a capacity building for all the manual in all area commands this time around. We want to ensure that all secondary schools have been taken care of by training them, by organizing a seminar symposium and the lectures for them in all secondary school in all 30 local government in the state. Also, this time around, we plan to have a very good working relationship with other security agencies like police, army, and DSS.
The Southwest Regional Commander of Man-O-War Nigeria, ANC Ayoade Adeoye, in his remarks, stressed that leadership is a grave responsibility that demands sacrifice, discipline, and commitment from the newly elected executive members, urging them to deliver their best in service.
The last not to build legacy. So this time around, this one that just came on board, they need to build on those legacies. Man-O-War, though, as the man say that soldier go, soldier come, Barak. Those that are just imagined today, they need to build on those legacies so that the Man-O-War will progress.
ANC Olufemi Sonny, Chief of Staff to the National Commander of Man-O-War Nigeria, also addressed the gathering, advising the incoming executives to build upon the successes of the outgoing administration, which had performed remarkably, and encourage them to elevate the bar even further.
Actually, they cannot be able to fill in all the gaps, but the only area that I want them to improve more on is aspect of membership with fairism. Where they look after membership like one by one. Not talking of units, not talking of area command this time, but on membership drive upward.
The oath of allegiance was taken by the newly elected executive members, who were then formally sworn in and decorated, signaling the commencement of their 4-year term.
To the discipline of the command, to serve, to strive always, and to set the highest in discipline, fitness, and effort. So help me God.
In her address, Chairman of the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, Chief Mrs. Dotun Olaiton, represented by the Director of Administration and Supplies, Pastor Abiola Olawale, offered congratulations to the re-elected state commander, advising him to build on the successes that led to his re-election and to consistently demonstrate commitment to fairness, justice, and principled leadership.
She asked me to tell you that you must keep the flag flying. Because of your hard work, fetched you another second time. Please continue to do your best. She asked me to remind you that politicking is here. Electioneering is here. There's no way you will not be involved. Please do your best, do what is just, do what is right.
Certificates and gifts were presented to the outgoing executive members as a token of appreciation for their dedication and outstanding service. Fedora Afolagwe, BCOS News.
We shall now go on a short commercial break. Please stay with us.
My skin is my identity, my strength. It's unique and deserves care made specially for me. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Even Glow, enriched with 95% pure vitamin C and pulp extract. For visibly radiant and even-toned skin in just 2 weeks. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Even Glow, for your shade of beautiful.
Welcome back. The Oyo State government has issued a public advisory to residents at the 2026 rainy season sets in, urging precautionary measures against flash floods, temporary road overflows, and rising temperatures expected in the coming weeks. The State Commissioner for Environment and Natural Resources, Ademola Aderito, gave the warning in a statement issued in Ibadan, the state capital. He enjoined the residents not to panic, as most flooding is expected to be. The Oyo State government has issued a public advisory to residents as the 2026 Rainy season sets in, urging precautionary measures against flash floods, temporary road overflows and rising temperatures expected in the coming weeks. The State Commissioner for Environment and Natural Resources, Ademola Adenrito, gave the warning in the statement issued in Ibadan, the state capital. He enjoined residents not to panic, as most flooding is expected to be temporary. The commissioner, while reaffirming the government's efforts to maintain free flow of water, urged residents to avoid indiscriminate water disposal and other environmental violations. He also disclosed that during the transition into the rainy season, occasional heat waves may occur, with temperatures rising to between 33 and 35 degrees centigrade. Adenrito therefore advised residents to stay hydrated, remain in cool environments, and avoid prolonged sun exposure and seek shade when necessary. The Trade Union Congress TUC is proposing what it calls a production subsidy for Dangote refinery and other modular refineries to help reduce the cost of premium motor spirit PMS, better known as petrol. TUC President Festus Oshifo said this when he fielded questions during an interview session with newsmen. Osifo argued that since the federal government has maintained it will not bring back subsidy on petrol, the country's leadership must look at cushioning the impact of the hike in the price of the essential commodity on Nigerians. Since the start of the United States-Israel-Iran war, the cost of petrol has moved from around 800 naira to about 1,300, depending on the location. Despite calls for the country to bring back subsidy on petrol, removed upon President Bola Tinubu's assumption of office in May 2023, the federal government has insisted there's no going back on the policy. However, Oshifo stated that the government should think about the box and quickly do things to assist its citizens. Meanwhile, almost 3 years after President Bola Tinubu announced the removal of fuel subsidy, many Nigerians are still grappling with its far-reaching effects. Citizens say the policy introduced on May 29, 2023 came unexpectedly with little or no immediate measures to cushion its impact. Staff reporter Gbemisola Adebayo takes a look at the development as government still maintains that it was necessary to stabilize the economy.
Fuel is widely regarded as the lifeblood of any economy. So, when the announcement of the removal of petrol subsidy was made by President Bola Tinubu during his inauguration speech, it sent shockwaves across the nation. Almost instantly, petrol prices surged, triggering ripple effect on transportation, food prices, and basic services. For many Nigerians, daily commuting became more expensive, forcing workers and students to adjust their routines or seek alternatives.
Nigerians are still struggling. Things are far way difficult to every Nigerian now. And I feel that my projection, when that announcement was made with the removal of fuel subsidy, was that by now things ought to have stabilized. Talking about the comfort of average Nigerians, I see this as a policy somersault.
We've not seen any government impact at all up to now. Then, where Seyi Makinde is trying, he has done so many routes within the town. But now, we need more action.
Small business owners were not spared either. From market traders to artisans, many have had to increase the prices of goods and services to stay afloat, often at the risk of losing customers. Some car owners, faced with rising fuel prices, have turned to public transportation. Meanwhile, the anticipated improvement in energy supply has not materialized, worsening the situation and prompting many people to adopt alternative energy sources such as solar power, which is becoming increasingly common.
Removal of subsidy has caused lots of economical inflation. For example, we bought about 60,000 worth of petrol, and in 2 days it's finished already. So Nigerians, I can say we are adapting. I personally, it comes to a point whereby if you have no choice, you just have to adapt. So but it's very difficult.
The federal government, on its part, introduced palliative measures, including cash transfers and transport schemes, among others. However, many citizens argue that these interventions have either been insufficient or poorly implemented. A professor of political science, Bade Ojo, expressed the view that the removal of fuel subsidy was designed to stimulate economic growth through improved infrastructure and enhanced living standards for Nigerians. However, he noted that the policy has yielded limited results with only modest gains in certain areas. It therefore emphasized the need for more effective economic management by the federal government.
Must have been one of the reasons why the finance minister was relieved of his position. Federal government has withdrawn subsidy, right? But despite that, they are accumulating debt, which is uncalled for. Aside from that, for those of us that are federal workers, payment of salaries are delayed every month. Then what is the essence of subsidy withdrawal? And in terms of infrastructure, we can see award of contract. But what of implementation? In the last 3 years, one major problem federal government have been facing through Ministry of Finance is disbursement of money. It is one thing to prepare budget that this year you want to spend 10 billion on health sector. But if at the end of the year, you could not release 2 billion, then budget is not being implemented. That means economy cannot grow. That means the life of an Afro-Nigerian cannot be better off. So government need better manager for the economy.
Now that the subsidy removal is irreversible, only time will tell whether the policy will ultimately deliver the promised economic transformation or deepen. Bemisola Adebayo, BCOS News.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has declared a former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk. She was wanted over alleged abuse of office and diversion of public funds. This was announced in a notice shared via the agency's official website on Saturday. According to the notice, Farouk is an indigene of Zamfara State, and her last known address is Okwo River off Agulu Street, Maitama, Abuja. Sadiya Farouk was appointed by late former President Muhammadu Buhari on July 2019 and the youngest minister in the federal cabinet during the administration. Phone numbers through which the anti-graft agency could be contacted towards the arrest of the ex-minister were provided in the notice. A leading figure in the National Democratic Congress, ADC, and close ally of former Governor Rabiu Musa Gwangwaso, Uba Galadima, has confirmed that the party has zoned its presidential ticket to the southern region ahead of its forthcoming primaries. Speaking in an interview with newsmen, Galadima said the party is concluding preparations for the submission of its updated membership register, which he stated would be forwarded between Tuesday and Wednesday on the coming of the week. He explained that the submission of the register would formally clear the way for the party to commence its internal electoral process. On the question of zoning, Galadima confirmed that the party has taken a firm position on its presidential ticket, allocating it to the southern part of the country. He added that the internal preparations were already ongoing to ensure that the party meets all statutory requirements and avoids delay in its political timetable. The Federal Ministry of Works has announced partial closure of the sections of the Ikorodu-Shagamu Road from Monday to facilitate the completion of the ongoing restructuring works. The Federal Controller of Works in Ogun State, Mr. Olaiwola Komolafe, made this known in a statement on Saturday. Komolafe said that the closure followed a directive by the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, ordering the contractor to resume work on critical sections of the highway to ensure prompt delivery of the project. He said that the traffic from Ikorodu to Shagamu would be diverted through the construction corridors under a counterflow arrangement The controller said the construction would last for 3 months to allow the execution of works and curing of the rigid pavement. Komolafe said that the officers of the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority would be deployed to manage traffic during the period specially. He appealed to motorists to cooperate with the traffic managers and law enforcement officers. The Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, has issued a public health advisory following recent reports of a hantavirus cluster linked to international cruise ship travel involving multiple countries. The advisory was announced on Saturday through the agency's official X handle, where the NCDC stated that there is currently no confirmed case of hantavirus in Nigeria and that the overall risk to the public remains low. According to the agency, hantaviruses are viruses primarily carried by rodents and humans can become infected through contact with infected rodents, their urine, saliva, droppings, or contaminated dust particles. The NCDC explained that the symptoms of the virus may include fever, fatigue, body aches, headaches, stomach-related complications, and in severe cases, difficulty breathing. As part of preventive measures, the agency urged Nigerians to maintain clean environment, prevent rodent infestation in homes and workplaces, store food properly, dispose of waste safely, avoid direct contact with rodents and their droppings, as well as practicing regular hand hygiene. The public health body noted that it is actively monitoring the situation while strengthening surveillance systems for emerging infectious diseases across the country. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has confirmed a total of 8 cases, up from 7 earlier reported, including 3 deaths from the hantavirus outbreak. In an update on Saturday highlighting the disease outbreak, the organization noted that the statistics were of Friday, May 8, 2026. It added that 6 cases are confirmed as Andes virus, 4 patients are currently hospitalized, while 1 case previously reported as suspected has now been reclassified as a non-case after testing negative for the Andes virus through specific polymerase chain reaction, PCR, and serology. Hantaviruses are zoonotic viruses that naturally infect rodents and can occasionally spread to people. It noted that the epidemiological investigation are underway to determine the source of exposure, including the travel history and potential exposure of the first case. The Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE, has advised Nigerians against retaliatory action against South African firms over the recent xenophobic attacks on migrants in that country. It said that retaliatory action is neither advisable or strategic. While describing the attacks as condemnable, it said that the situation is deeply troubling, especially as many Nigerian migrants have reportedly been among the victims. CPPE, in a statement signed by its Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Muda Yusuf, said it is regrettable that some South Africans can continue to target fellow Africans despite shared history, common identity, and collective aspirations as a continent. It advised Nigerian government to strengthen bilateral engagement with South African authorities to ensure the safety and protection of Nigerians in that country. Singles have been advised to understand that marriage is a life-changing institution that requires proper preparation through courtship and adequate understanding before settling down. The advice was given by a marriage coach, Dr. Funke Adetubero, and a family lawyer and marriage counselor, Enyayo Akintujoye, while discussing the topic, handling financial pressure in marriage amid economic hardship, on the BCOS television magazine program, Saturday Special. PCOS reporter Fidora Afolagboye reports.
Rising inflation and the prevailing economic hardship in the country have continued to place enormous financial pressures on many families. The development is testing the patience, understanding, and resilience of couples as they struggle to meet responsibilities and maintain stability in their homes. Speaking on BCOS television program, Saturday Special, marriage coach Dr. Funke Adetubero and family lawyer and marriage counselor Enyayo Akintujoye observed that many marital challenges are often rooted in unresolved emotional and family issues carried into marriage from dysfunctional backgrounds. They advise couples to embrace openness and transparency in financial matters, stressing the need for partners to understand each other's financial strengths and limitations in order to avoid unrealistic expectations capable of creating conflicts in the home.
In marriage, you have a spender, you have an accountant. In marriage, if he's an accountant, we allow him to do the savings. We will spend because we are spenders. It takes understanding to know that this person is an accountant. I know, let my husband keep the money. I teach that to intended couple. You know, apart from compatibility, you know you spend too much. Let the person that is not spending put money, meaning that you have to discipline yourself and humble yourself and remove your ego to say, okay, my dear, we are spending this for what reason? If you are too proud to explain, then you are not ready to be married.
People are running marriage against the manual and they say they won't have crisis. So you can't eat your cake and still have it. Now, one of the critical principles of marriage by the manufacturer is that the two of them, they were naked
and they were not
ashamed. The principle of nakedness is a core principle of any functional marriage. And when I talk about nakedness, I'm talking about total transparency. What is the problem? What are you hiding?
I wonder.
Somebody, you see,
they are hiding because they have baggages.
The relationship experts noted the lack of wisdom in financial management could rob homes of peace, adding that financial hardship and poor economic planning often contribute significantly to marital disputes. They explained that effective financial management in marriage requires couples to deliberately sit together to discuss their finances, identify areas where expenses can be reduced, and develop practical strategies to survive difficult economic realities. The guest added that such financial plans must be properly implemented to achieve meaningful results.
Every great marriage is powered by two pillars. One, friendship. The second is sense of responsibility. Marriage is dominated by responsibilities, dominated by payment of bills, for obvious reasons. Now, because of that, there is a minimum amount, there is a minimum financial empowerment capacity that is requisite to power a thriving marriage.
If you are from a dysfunctional home where parents, you have two parties in the home, PDP 1, PDP 2, and there's no synergy, there's no oneness, there's no unity. Parents told themselves, "This is my money, this is my person, this is my dad." There's a lot of confusion, and it's not because of them. Somebody passed the baton. The children will pass the baton, another person will pass the baton. So somebody must stop the flow. And basically, some of our challenges in our relationship, they are fundamental, they are foundational.
The expert also urged singles to carry out compatibility assessments physically, mentally, socially, and financially before going into marriage, warning that divorce often comes with emotional and financial consequences that may be more devastating than expected. Fidora Afolagwe, BCOS News.
We now move over to the Sport Desk for sport news.
Good evening and welcome to the sports segment. I am Buluwaji Ogumola. Sporting Lagos were crowned champions of the 2025-2026 Nigerian National League season despite suffering a 1-0 loss to city rivals Inter Lagos on the final day of the Super 4 at the Remo Star Stadium in Ikenne on Friday. Bashir Hassan scored the decisive goal for Inter Lagos in the 7th minute as they produced a spirited display in the Lagos derby, but Sporting's superior goal difference ensured they finished top of the standings and secured their first ever NNL title. The final round of matches was played simultaneously, with Ranchers Bees defeating Doma United 3-1 in the other fixture to finish third in the competition. All four teams had already secured promotion to the Nigerian Premier Football League for the 2026-2027 season after emerging winners in their respective conferences, with the Super 4 serving as the competition to determine the overall champions of the second-tier league. Sporting and Inter both finished the competition on 6 points, but Sporting claimed the championship with a goal difference of +4 to Inter's +1. Inter settled for second, while Ranchers Bees overtook Doma United to place third in the standings. The Super Four also concluded with several individual and team awards presented by the league organizers. The Nigeria Basketball Federation, NBBF, has announced the appointment of David Fitzdale as the new head coach of the Tigers. Fitzdale's appointment comes on recommendation of NBBF Technical Committee. The American has coached in the National Basketball Association NBA all his life. Fitzdale, who is expected to contribute meaningfully to coaches' education, player development pathways, and broader technical growth within the Nigerian basketball ecosystem, left his role with the Phoenix Suns last year. The Athletics Federation of Nigeria is targeting overall victory at the CAA Senior African Athletics Championships in Accra, Ghana, which begins on Monday, with Technical Director Gabriel Okon saying the Federation's ambitions stretch well beyond simply giving young athletes competitive exposure. Nigeria are sending a 45-athlete squad made up of 25 women and 20 men to the University of Ghana Sports Complex for the 5-day championships running from May 12 to 17. The contingent blends experienced performers with emerging talent, and Okun said the goal is to dominate the continent while also using the championships to secure remaining qualification tickets for the 2026 World Athletics Championships. Finally, Mexican authorities on Friday announced that the school year would end over a month early as the country gears up to host the World Cup matches, prompting broad backlash. Education Secretary Mario Delgado said the decision to end the school year 40 days early was made in part due to a heat wave impacting several states. He noted, however, that authorities were considering in turn moving up the start of the next academic year, currently scheduled for August 31st. The tournament, hosted jointly by Mexico, the United States, and Canada, kicks off on the 11th of June, when Mexico takes on South Africa at home in Mexico City. And that's sports. Thanks for watching.
And on the foreign scene, the United States military said it has killed 2 people, leaving 1 survivor. In its latest attack on vessels in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, the United States Southern Command, SOUTHCOM, announced the attack in a statement accompanied by a video that showed a moving boat being struck by a missile and then bursting into the ball of flames. Foreign News Editor Adedoyin Olejide compiled the report along with stories coming from Russia, Ukraine, and Iran. Our report is presented by Bimbo Akombi.
SOUTHCOM oversees the U.S. military operations in the Caribbean and Latin America. It said the vessel was operated by designated terrorist organizations, but provided no evidence in support of this claim. It added that no military forces were armed in the operation. This is the 3rd attack in May, coming a few days after the U.S. military reported killing 3 people in a similar attack. Since the United States began its operation in September, targeting what the U.S. claims are narco traffickers, it has killed more than 170 people, although estimates vary. The Trump administration has defended these strikes by likening drug trafficking to an armed attack on the United States and designating numerous criminal groups involved in the drug trade as terrorist organizations. International legal scholars, rights workers, and regional leaders have dismissed the U.S. claims, warning that the strikes constitute extrajudicial killings and that no state of armed conflict exists to justify such operations. In the meantime, Donald Trump has announced a 3-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine after both countries accuse each other of violating separate ceasefires declared by each side to cover the celebrations of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany. The U.S. president said the ceasefire will include a suspension of all kinetic activity and also a prison swap of 1,000 prisoners from each country. Shortly afterwards, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed Ukraine's participation, while Russia's state media also said Russia had agreed to the proposal. Earlier, both sides said the other had continued to attack their positions, and Moscow's mayor said the city had been targeted by drones overnight. In his post, Trump said he had personally requested the 3-day truce and appreciated its agreement, by President Vladimir Putin and President Volodymyr Zelensky. Putin had announced a ceasefire for 8 to 9 May ahead of the Victory Day celebrations on Saturday. Kiev had earlier called for an indefinite truce starting 6 May. Russia has warned Ukraine not to try to attack the Victory Day parade in Red Square. Its defense ministry has threatened to launch a retaliatory massive missile strike on the center of Kiev if Moscow is attacked. It has warned foreign diplomats to leave the Ukrainian capital before 9th May. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there will be no military hardware at the parade, while the Russian capital is on high alert over the fears that Ukraine could try to disrupt the events. Finally, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has accused the US of opting for a reckless military adventure every time a diplomatic solution is on the table. Araghchi said in a post on X that Iranians will never bow to pressure despite the clashes. Trump said the ceasefire was intact. It is meant to enable talks to end the war that the US and Israel launched in February. Iran was expected to respond to US proposals on Friday, according to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Iran has been controlling the Strait of Hormuz as well as attacking US allies in the Gulf in retaliation for the US and Israeli attacks. Some 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas uses the crucial waterway whose blockade has sent prices soaring. Earlier this week, Trump launched and then paused a US military operation to help free some 2,000 vessels which have been stranded in the area since February. The US is also maintaining a naval blockade of Iranian ports in order to exert pressure on Tehran to agree to the US terms, a move that has angered Tehran. Later, the US signaled its readiness to host a new round of Israel-Lebanon talks next week, aimed at halting the clashes in Lebanon between Iranian-backed Hezbollah and Israeli forces. A spokesperson for the US State Department said the intensive talks on 14th and 15th May will aim to deliver lasting security for Israel and sovereignty and reconstruction of Lebanon. Bimbo Akambi, BCOS News.
To end the news around the world, here again are the main points. Nigeria's National Security Advisor, Nuru Rubadu, has held talks with senior United States government officials on counterterrorism, defense cooperation, and regional security. The Oyo State government has issued a public advisory to residents as the 2026 rainy season sets in, urging precautionary measures against flash floods, temporary road overflows, and rising temperatures expected in the coming weeks. The United States military said it has killed 2 people, leaving 1 survivor in its latest attack on vessels in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. BCOS website is live. Kindly visit www.bcostv.com. You can reach us on GoTV, channel 134 and channel 113 on Star Times. Now, before I go, make sure you play safe in everything you do. And that's the end of the news around the world. Thank you for watching.